And as always, we will begin with 3 deep breaths. So let's take a deep breath in through the nose and softly let this out of the mouth. Another deep breath in through the nose and softly let that out of the mouth. Last time, deep breath in through the nose. Just hold it for a moment. See if you can soften your shoulders and your belly. And when I say one, let out a nice sigh. 3, 2, 1. And so today's topic that we're going to begin with is navigating spirituality in relationships. And today I am joined by Tom Perry, who is a shamanic practitioner and space holder. He carries Taino blood and works deeply with various indigenous wisdom practices and lineages. We at Discovering Kaya first met Tom 4 years ago when he came to sit with ayahuasca at a church that I had then worked at. And since then, he has been deeply devoted to sitting with Combo through Dylan. If you don't know who Dylan is our Combo server, our San Pedro server, as well as our integration coach. So we spent a lot of mornings together. And he has also participated last year in our virtual Cacao Dieta. And so he is a truly inspiring, grounded, raw, and real human being. And it has been a gift to get to know him and continue this relationship. And so the way that this podcast episode came to be was literally just through us having a conversation. And so we started to have that conversation, and I'm going to hand it right over to Tom to just give us your initial heart thoughts on navigating spirituality in relationships.
Thanks, Dan. That was quite the introduction there. You got me a little flustered over here. Um, so yes, navigating spirituality and relationships. That has been that's been a journey and a half for the last 4 years of being on the plant medicine journey and deeply diving into the wisdom that it brings up, as well as working with medicines as well. I also work with San Pedro or Wachuma, and that being such a heart-opening medicine really, really connects you to the earth, yourself, and everyone around you. But it also opens the door to all of the gunk inside of people too. And learning to not bring that home has been difficult. As well as any shamanic practices that I've been a part of, you take on a lot. You have to make sure you don't dump it on your partner when you come home. Um, it's a tricky thing to navigate when you are when you're a shamanic individual. You're dealing with a lot more than just, oh, I'm ingesting plants. You're dealing with
Mm.
spirits. You're dealing with energies. And if your partner or whoever you're in a relationship with, or whatever it is that you have going on, if they're not on the same frequency of that, I won't say level because it's not about levels. If they're not on the same page with you, if they don't have the sight or the hearing or the understanding of this life in that way, it can get complicated very quickly. You are already navigating boundaries with dozens of people at a time. You're navigating boundaries when you go out into the world. You are probably feeling 10 times more. You're seeing things in between the spaces that no one looks at. It's like reading between the lines, but with energy. You're just constantly like, oh man, all of these people are a mess and they have no idea. And then you have to go home and look at your partner and be like, oh, it's a mess in here too. And then you look in the mirror, you're like, oh, I'm a mess too. Oh, can I swear on this podcast? Sometimes I
Of
drop an
course.
F-bomb here and there. Okay. All right, I just got to
Who
make
do you
sure.
think you're talking with?
I just had to ask because I dropped a couple F-bombs here and there. But yeah, it's a tricky type of relationship to be in. And when you're with someone who's also spiritual, who also understands energy and can navigate with spirits, you also have to worry about forms of manipulation. um, lots of secrecy, and there's a lot of hiding. Um, I've been in several situations where the other person has other motives, if you will, um, that they weren't upfront about. And being a shamanic practitioner and someone who works with spirit, who works with protective spirits and sometimes very aggressive ones, they have a tendency to show up and be like, hey, dummy, we've been trying to tell you, walk away. This is why you're getting aggravated because you know something's wrong, but you don't know how to say no. So we're just going to keep making you frustrated until you give up. And then you'll say, okay, I'm done. Um, how do I put this to words? That's why when I talk to my male clients or friends or people getting involved spiritually, like, they're not really involved with this space, but they're like really attracted to the witchy women. And I tell them all the time,
Mm.
you better be careful because it's not just her. You don't know what she works with. You don't know what they're working with. And I say the same thing to the women. You have no idea what that guy's into. And you and I both know we've heard enough horror stories of all of the things that happen in ceremony and after ceremony and things that, everything in the dark comes to light at some point.
100%.
So when you are, if you're someone who's looking to get involved with someone who's involved with these things, please figure out who the person is more so than the image. Everybody looks great up front. Who are they when they go home? I'm great at holding space. I can hold space. I can totally disassociate from my personal life and be present in the path that I'm being called to. When I go home, don't bother me. I held space, leave me alone. I want to sit on the couch and play video games and eat that pizza and come back to reality because that's my way of separating. Ceremony's over. I want to be normal. Please don't ask me about what my spirits are saying. Don't ask me to light candles and do work for you or do anything like that. No, I'm not helping you with this. Go find a teacher. I want to come home to my partner. I want to come home to a level of peace. I want to come home to peace. That's what I want to come home to. So if you're looking to be with somebody in the spiritual space, even as a partner in the sense of business, you have to understand where the boundaries are and the separations are. When you come to work, be at work. Leave home at home. When you go home, don't bring your business partner home. You know, let things be where they need to be. I think in the West, we want to put everything together. We want to put a label on everything. We want to smush it all together in a nice package and say, here for $5.99, come sit with me. I don't know why I picked $5.99, but I saw it clear as day. It's like right with. And I'm in the process right now of not using labels. That's why for me, the easiest thing to say is I'm a shamanic practitioner and I hold space because that's what I do. You want to give me a title of importance, I'll let you. Doesn't mean I'm going to take it home. Because you know what happens, your head gets bigger. I got a big enough head as it is. I don't need it to be any bigger. And being a Leo, that's the ego's already in it big enough. So I'm I'm okay with not getting any more flattery. But I think that's something else we could talk on is the ego that you see of the medicine man or woman in the front, right? It shines so bright and it attracts us all like moths to a flame. The problem is that could be a really hot flame and it's going to burn out very quickly and you with it. And I think I say we because we've had so many conversations, but I think there's a lot of us who recognize like people get into partnerships, relationships. I'm going to use those two terms interchangeably, um, because that's the word people use now, partnership and this and that, whatever, especially in that community. Um, you see a lot of people get together because, oh, this one has medicine, this one has access to a shaman, this one has a retreat center, this one has this one has that. And you realize that you're not there for the person, you're there for what they can give you. And then when they don't give it to you anymore, Now they're an asshole. Oh, they're mean.
Hmm.
Oh, they're bad people. Or they're this. Or they're that. Um, my whole my whole time with Wachuma, I didn't ask for a thing. I just wanted space to sit with the medicine. I didn't ask for a dime. I never did. And it wasn't until I
Hmm.
felt a little pressured to ask to be repaid for my time that I made my fuss for about 2 minutes, you know, and then I realized, sitting because I like to spend a lot of time alone. We also like a lot of alone time.
Hmm.
Alone time is necessary for people like us who need to be with nature. That's our home, that's our temple, that's our church. I need to listen to the wind, into the rivers, into the mountains, into the spirits of the forest, into God through the trees,
Hmm.
because there's too much going on here. The phone's going off, the clock's going off, this one's talking, that one's on the phone. I need alone time to listen. And at that point, when I started listening to God, to the universe, to the great spirit that's always around us and in us, it was you were paid with the experience to apprentice with Wachuma just solely with the medicine. Your path is to hold space and to be a protector in this space. You were paid with the grace and
Hmm.
opportunity. That was the
Hmm.
reciprocity. You put the work in, but you were also given the space. And so for me, that was enough. That fulfilled me. That filled my soul up. You know, I didn't need the medicine to actually hold the space. I was just happy to be there at that point because that's where I wanted to be. It was with whom
Hmm.
I eventually called, like my brothers. And like brothers, we fight. We can't stand each other. They annoy the shit out of me. But if you call me and you need me, I show up. If you say, "Hey, I got a couch for you to sleep on," that's enough. So when you're
Hmm.
when you're when you're when you're dealing with these different relationships in the spiritual realm, you have to understand who sits where at the table. If this
Hmm.
one's got a lot of money, they'll probably offer you money. But if this one only has some food and a mat to sleep on, that's just as good as this,
Hmm.
you know? And it's the same with coming to see you guys when you were in the States. The drive meant nothing, but to
Hmm.
spend time with you for the day was everything. And I hate driving to New York. So I hate driving to the city. But I did it because you guys were so genuine, especially in the beginning of my journey of learning these different medicines. Because prior to that, the shamanic realm for me was drumming, being in
Hmm.
nature, being silent, and a whole lot of Afro Caribbean style spiritualism, if you will, that um, thankfully I had that prior to
Yeah.
getting involved with this because sitting with something like ayahuasca is intense.
Hmm.
And being in the spiritual realm already, being in altered states without it, meeting her was like, oh, hey, I know you. I know you from somewhere. Um, I went on a little tangent. I go on tangents. Um,
Yeah. Let's take a deep breath.
let's take that deep breath.
Take a deep breath in through the nose and softly let it out. So these are all such important pieces of the puzzle. And that's why I do love that we chose the idea of navigating spirituality in relationships, because relationships can be such an umbrella term, because we're not just talking about romantic relationships or sexual relationships, but you're also talking about business relationships. You're talking about community relationships. You're talking about, and we can even get into that too, is like, family style relationships. And one of the things that I want to hit on a few points and then I want to continue down the slide that we're moving is that I loved when you hit on the ego of the medicine man and the ego of the medicine woman. And I want to even bring it down further to the ego of the person who's practicing spirituality, period, in partnership, right? Or whether that's romantic partnership or platonic partnership, there tends to be this like almost friction once you really start being around someone often. And it doesn't have to be within the plant medicine and psychedelic realm, it can be in the way of yoga asana, it can be in the way of drum circles, it can be in the way of reading cards, reading runes, all this stuff. And there ends up being this friction where if you're not able to check yourself on a constant basis of why am I either pushing myself and my beliefs, or why am I allowing their beliefs to be pushed onto me, there then comes that resentment. And again, this is for everything. This isn't just the romantic, this is all of the other relationships. Like really making sure that you're in right relationship with your version of spirituality. And if your version of spirituality happens to be serving plant medicines and psychedelics, then obviously, what does it look like to be in right relationship with those plants? But also, if it's not those plants, what does it look like to be in right relationship with the journey of the drum? And how are you either forcing it onto someone next to you because you're like, it does so much for me, why can't it do so much for you? Or some other version of it, right? And so I love that you hit on that fact. And I think without going too deep into the plant medicine community of the Northeast, I think specifically, I think there's so many places where people do cling to other people, and it's so fucked. And that's why I've always loved talking like our private conversations where it's been like I can recognize that that person is only spending time with that other person because they either have a ton of money, they have a ton of connections, they have a place to stay. And like I struggle with that so deeply because navigating spirituality in any relationships, I struggle to make more friends and more community members in some of those spaces because I look at people and I'm like, you kind of let me down though. You were talking shit about person A, but then there you were going, well, the only way that I can like keep my business going is by talking to person A. And then I'm like, but then do you really have a soul-led business? Because if you were in right relationship with your version of spirituality and what you were offering to the world, wouldn't you figure out there are so many other communities of people that don't do shit like that? So we don't have to go too deep into that, but just putting that out there into our conversation. And I also really appreciated you bringing up working with medicine and this idea of basically, I'm going to explain it this way. Recently, I had two friends come over and we spent the whole day in my garden. And one of them had asked, what do you think about all of the people that just offer cacao at like kirtan? They offer cacao at a static dance. Like it's just everywhere here. Obviously, in Peru, we have much more access to cacao than you would in the United States, right? And so I said, I don't mind when it's at all of these places, right? Like I go to a ceramics group and sometimes there's cacao being offered and you're allowed to drink it, but they're not saying, oh, this is in a ceremonial sense. You know what I mean? They might use the term ceremonial grade cacao, which like that's a whole other issue within within that area. If you don't know about it, maybe I could talk about that another time. But I said, as long as they're not saying this is a cacao ceremony and then not doing any piece of the ceremonial aspect at all, or not understanding how to hold the space. And that continued the conversation of her asking about my journey and my experience with working with cacao. And I had said I had did my training and then locked the training away in a beautiful little box inside of my heart space. And then the medicine was just for me. And I'm sure you've also had that where the medicine comes and it knocks and it says, hey, it's time for you to serve me. And you go, no. And then it says, hey, it's time for you to he goes, okay, but it's
Yeah.
really time for you to serve me. And you keep going, no, you know? And so I, for years, only either went to ceremony or sat with myself. And then it wasn't until I started serving my family and friends. And then I was like, okay, I can hear that call to go more with the public. And I still was resisting it. And I feel like that speaks to so many people that are in right relationship with their version of spirituality or their medicine that they work with. Then there are so many people that just wake up on a Tuesday and boom, they're serving ayahuasca. Like I don't understand how that happened. Like I don't I don't really get that. But like, I mean, I understand everybody has to play a role in the world. Everybody has to play a role here. And we all have to learn as well. And maybe that is a piece of them learning through whatever ways they're supposed to. But I love that you hit on there was reciprocity, that you got what you needed, even though it doesn't look like what other people say, well, you help, especially with San Pedro Huachuma, this is 12 hours, right? And you're dealing with people's mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual energies for before the ceremony starts, during the 12 hours, and afterwards, right? And so people are like, you should be 100% charging the money that your time and your expertise is worth. And although I do agree with that, I also think you also have to be in the place to see yourself receiving those things. Because if you
Right.
don't see yourself receiving those things, then that's not the reciprocity that you needed at that time. And so I'm going to take a deep breath because I just said a whole bunch of whatever. And I want to ask you, as somebody who works closely with the heartbeat of the drum and does healing with the drum, when it comes to navigating your relationships, how do you see that the drum has taught you to behave or experience? And you can take a minute if you have to think.
Hmm. Taught me to be still. It taught me to sit still and be grounded. Because when you're not grounded using the drum and directing that heartbeat, that energy of the drum, the spirit of the drum, and everybody's drum has a different spirit to it, whether it's synthetic or animal skin. If you put energy into it, it's got a spirit to it. Um, I have a big drum I use in ceremony, and I think you've seen it. It's with the Thunderbird on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's actually been used in many ceremonies because it's synthetic, because it withstands the snow and the rain, and the cold and the heat.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first got that drum, I was not ready for the power that it had at all. It wasn't blessed, it wasn't cleansed, it wasn't. I just took it out and started playing. And at about midnight, I started to feel all of this stuff rise up. I started becoming anxious. I started feeling a certain way. I was getting old memories coming back. It had released that somatic release, if you will, to
Mm-hmm.
it was all out now because the drum just shook it all up from the heart. Just, but it took time. I think I went to the gym that night just to move the energy because suddenly I had a lot of energy. Where I had been stuck, it's not stuck anymore. And over time, I realized this is my drum. No one's allowed to play this drum
Mm-hmm.
until I understood how to handle that energy. Every drum has its own song, its own beat. And allowing others to finally use it in ceremony, to hold space, to run it, gave me the chance to see it. Okay, that's how that drum can be used. That's how the medicine can be used from that drum. I don't need plant medicine. I can use that drum to bring you to the spaces and places you need to go to. And one of the experiences I've had that was really disheartening was on a journey with mushrooms. No, it wasn't really a like ceremony. We just kind of did them. A previous partner of mine, and the experience I had led me to the message of you can't hear the heartbeat of Mother Earth anymore. And it wasn't until I put my head on the ground and I listened and I listened and I listened and I heard this beat. I was like, okay, I can still hear it. I need to make sure everybody else can. And so when I hold space, there are times where I will do that that double beat for the heart. And sometimes it's not even for the people, it's for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the drum, the drum is a great way to equalize things as well. If you're having a really hard day, if you're really struggling and you have a drum, I always offer a little tobacco to it. Um, and I sit and I breathe and I just boom, 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 boom. And it just gets you back into a space of synchronization, right? You're being in alignment. Sometimes breathing doesn't work. Sometimes it's too loud. Sometimes all of these things are going on, but that drum beat clears the air really quickly. And when you wake the spirit of the drum up, it's like, oh, you need help. Okay, I'll help you. And this is obviously in your private practice, but when you're holding space for other people, you're you're drumming, you're guiding, you're leading, and you can't stop until it's time. And you may be there for a while. Whether your hands
Mhm.
hurt, your knuckles are bleeding, it doesn't matter. You are channeling the energy of that drum. And when the drum's done, that's when you're done.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful tool and a wonderful friend if you have respect and reverence for it. And if you're lucky enough to have a special medicine your drum, like my drum, my personal drum that I use privately, not all anyone use it anymore, has a spirit of the bear in it. Just and I handmade this drum. Um, so when I need a certain type of medicine that revolves around the bear, maybe I need some nurturing, maybe I just need to relax, maybe I need to um, find strength. I can call on that spirit. I can call on that drum. I can sit with it. Okay, I need your help. Um, the bigger drum is for ceremonies now. I try not to play it privately. I try not to play it in the house by myself. Uh, it's not as needed as it was before. It's got a deep bass tone to it. So when you're sitting
Mhm.
next to somebody and they're going through something, and you start boom, 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 it reverberates through the body.
Mhm.
If you got something stuck, it's gonna get it out. It's gonna shoot it out. And I've seen that. I've seen that many times. Uh, and I also have a djembe that I use outside of the hand drum. That one is for, that one also gets tobacco. That one is, I got that. The djembe and I have a very interesting um, relationship. I was told the last minute, you're going to have to learn how to play the djembe because, our drummer's not here for the weekend. You're going to get the crash course. I don't think I got the crash course, but I actually learned how to channel my ancestors to play the drum. So when I play that drum, if I put my hair down, because I have long hair for those of you who can't see or don't know, um, just have Florida water ready because that might not be me playing anymore.
Mhm.
Full on spirit coming in and
Mhm.
saying, "Get out of the way, kid. You don't know what you're doing. Let me show you how to play these drums." And it happened. And this is without medicine too. There's no, when I channel spirits, when I incorporate with spirits, there's no more medicine. There's nothing. It is faith and relationship with them and trust.
Mhm.
Um, so when I play the djembe, it's in honor of the ancestors or certain native spirits or energies or entities in relation to some of the things I might be doing. So the
Mhm.
drum is so versatile in my practice now. It all depends on who's sitting in front of me. Um, I have started training someone in regards to in regards to holding space. But there's such a powerful channeler for a few spirits that I started opening up my house privately to her in regards to letting them come through so she can channel safely.
Mhm.
This is something that I don't offer to everyone, but this is something that I offer to specific individuals who have put in enough time and show me they have real relation with spirit. Like they're not just
Mhm.
pretending to channel spirit. You can see they're completely pushed
Mhm.
out of the way at this point because the energy shifts, the confidence shifts, the I don't care if you're in the
Mhm.
room shifts. It's like, okay, you need space for that. And so the drum is a great
Mhm.
channeler for that as well. Hmm.
I have two things
Go ahead.
that I'd like. I adore talking to you, but I know you already know that. I have two things that I want to really hit on here. And so the first thing, I'm going to tell you both things because I want to make sure we really talk about them. So the first thing would be like in relation to utilizing the drum and allowing your ancestors to come through. I also feel like it's going to be important for us to talk about how our relationships with our family members, and whatever you're comfortable to talk about, like you can have the space to do that. But like I even know for myself how the deeper and deeper I got into spirituality, how most of the family that I had growing up is not in my family. And that's also because my dad had an affair, my parents had a tumultuous divorce. But also, the deeper and deeper I got into being with spirit and being with union and being in that oneness, I was kind of like, well, I don't have the space that I used to have for these people's energy. And then the other thing that I want to make sure that we hit on is training people in relationship to the idea of what we see as trainings,
Mm,
because you and I are quite
okay.
similar in the
Yeah.
idea. So first, I want to go back to that idea. If you feel comfortable, if you've noticed anything that has shifted in your family life, the deeper and deeper that you got into this.
Um, oof. Ugh. Oh, I get
The shiver.
the energetic shivers. I think my dad's in the room somewhere. Um, it, we'll start with him. Okay.
Mm,
He made himself known, even in death, he still makes himself very known. So about a year ago, as you know, my father passed.
mhm,
He since then has not left me alone and still needs to tell me to go to work every day. Even though I do. That's just cracking a joke on him because he's healing, like, that's a topic for another day. But my relationship with him changed big time. We worked
mm,
every day. We did construction, so trade work, was very stressful. He was going through a divorce. Basically, as soon as I started ayahuasca, papers were signed.
mm,
Like the starting of that start, like it happened. I was like, okay, this is going to be a fun ride. My time in the shamanic realm, if you will, the spiritual realm, in relation to him and my family, I guess as a whole, shifted in a more positive light, but it brought a lot more responsibility on my shoulders.
mm,
As I started to heal, do some really deep healing, um, really intense moments of introspection, realization, uncovering some things, remembering things. As I started to let them go and to move past that, move on from it, heal from it, I noticed the behaviors changed of everyone around me. As I started to relax a little bit more, they relaxed a little bit more. But when I was angry,
mm,
they didn't know what to do because now where am I going to put it? The box that I once had for this anger is gone. So you all have to
mm,
feel it now. You pissed me off, him especially.
mm,
My father was a very big, physically big man. But when I would be angry, like in the truck, if I was pissed off that he did something or I didn't feel like it was the right thing for him to have done or didn't take my advice or warnings, I'd be angry. It was the only time he would stop talking. And of course, the radio in the truck didn't work. But I've
of
always had
course.
headphones in my ears. So I'm not saying nothing and I got music blasting. I'm angry and you can feel it heat the truck up.
Mm,
And then he would have to call someone. He'd have to talk to somebody, get it like it was hard because I know how to push it out and bring it in, push it out and bring it in. So instead of
mm,
telling people how I felt, I started making them see how I felt or making them feel how I felt. That's not a good thing to do. Don't do that. I
mm.
don't advise it.
Don't
Okay.
don't do that.
Okay. That is not good energetic practices. Okay. That is unethical in the space holding. But with your family, it's a different story. Um,
True.
so with him, he started seeing all of the healing. He started, I started doing more things for myself, which encouraged him to also do things for himself. They probably weren't always the best things. And I often came home to a story that would make me roll my eyes. Um, but I noticed the change in him because he just worked, work, and then it was work, play, work, vacation. If I went away, he went away.
Mm,
So it did do some good for him in the end. Um, for everyone else, I am now the person they call when they hear something go bump in the night.
Mm.
So let me tell you what happened. Blah, 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 blah. No,
Mm.
go deal with it. What do you mean go deal with it? You have to go deal with that. That's your responsibility. You're the elder.
Mm.
If you give me title of elder, you're not in charge anymore. You don't want that.
Mm.
Okay. Because that's how I had to be. Because everyone turned into a toddler. You- I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna take a deep breath. I had a conversation. I had a conversation last night like this with my mother, who I love dearly, also very spiritual, but denies her gifts in the sense of like, oh,
Mm.
I know just enough, and I don't want to push and open any doors. Woman, the
Mm.
door's been burst open when you birthed me into existence. So you should have been learning the whole time. Um, but everybody in my family knows that I'm a very spiritual, shamanic individual, that
Mm.
I'm the one to call when something wrong happens. If they feel there's an entity causing problems, and I always turn around and go,
Mhm.
well, what did you do to stir it up? I'm not blaming the entity. I'm not going to blame the spirits or the whatever. Well, what were you doing? There's
Mm.
only one reason why it's attached to you. You did something to lower yourself to its vibration. It stuck to you. What'd you do? Well, you can change it. No, you don't want to do that.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll send you some sage. Do they burn
No,
it?
you
No.
don't want to do that.
No, I give them Copal now because I'm like, I'm not going to make the spirit feel bad for their fuck up.
I think that this is
Um,
such an important topic that so many people can relate to. And so, like, from my perspective, I was always like the parentified child. My parents noticed that I could speak to the deceased relatives that they had that I had never met when I was 3. And
mm,
so it just kind of became like by the time I was in middle school, we were already talking about lucid dreaming, astral projection, because I was experiencing those things, but they didn't fully know how to help me like navigate those experiences. But even people that like, so for me, it's been my whole life, right? It's always been, well, Dan's kind of something's happening over there, right? But we've there are also going to be other people that are going to listen to this podcast that are going to say, I didn't break into this until I was in my 30s, my 40s, my 50s. It wasn't until much later on. But once you start to take that shift, especially people that are blood related to you, they can feel that whether they're aware of your shift or not, or they're even aware of that feeling, something in them changes because something in you has changed. And it doesn't
yeah,
necessarily mean that it's a good change. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad change. I'm just saying when there is a shift like that energetically and spiritually within your body, it starts to affect the ones that are still here on this earthly plane. And it also knocks on the doors of the ones that are over in the spirit realm doing whatever they're doing. So I think that this topic is, I appreciate you sharing because so many people can most likely relate to the idea of,
yeah.
fuck, now I get these phone calls from these people. And yeah, like I love you, but do I like you that much? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the other thing is you start to realize how much you don't like certain family members just because you're picking up on something extra that maybe no one wants to talk about. We just
Mm.
that's the strange cousin or uncle or aunt, but you don't know why they're strange until the spirits start telling you. They're like, this is why. And you're like, oh, oh yeah, you're not invited to parties anymore. Um, I've never had that issue, but I know a lot of people who have had that issue. Um, when when all of this started for me in my early 20s, I'm 33 now. So I mean, I've been on this path for a long time at this point. But when it happened, I had cousins who are half, I would say more indigenous than I am. They're full, they're half Puerto Rican, half whatever indigenous tribe or whatever. When I started reaching out to them, they were like, "Oh, we've been waiting for you,
Mm.
but you had to come to us." And there was a chance that you wouldn't.
It wouldn't
But we're glad
happen.
that you're here. And
Mm-hmm.
so I love when people are like, "Oh, you can't use sage; it's appropriating." I'm like, "Well, my cousin said I could use it, so bite me."
You're like, you don't know
So
what my, you don't know what
you
I'm made
don't
up of.
know because I'm a very white Puerto Rican, so it's I'm half and half. So, but no, but I noticed that when I started doing the healing, especially the ancestral work too, so I saw the healing and the changes through the bloodline, especially with mom, and her relationship with her mother. and how and where that started in the bloodline long in the, like I do a lot of ancestral work. I don't do a whole lot of past life healing. I do a lot of ancestral
Mm.
work that may take me to some very old places. Um, and those are hard places to be at when you get into that space. But when you heal that, when you make it known that you're the current descendant, you're the current one in the present, wanting to do the healing work because your trauma is genetically being transferred through the years and generations. Not just spiritually, but it's just in there.
Hmm.
We got to do something about this. And the proof I would get was the dreams they would have, the memories that would come up, things would suddenly, the stories would change, but I never told anybody. I never told anybody what I was doing, what I was into. My father just knew there was some smelly scents coming out of my room, and he got weird symbols on the door. Those weird symbols kept him out. They kept everyone out. You know, people used to just barge into my space, and suddenly there was a,
Mm.
"Can I come in?" Because you can't get in.
Hmm.
Um, um,
That's happened to me with Dylan. That's that's happened to me where
oh
I've been
God,
like, huh, this is kind of strange. And he's like, oh, give me a second.
yeah,
I feel like you would find it funny to know that he, so one of his rune books,
yeah,
I didn't know what it was years ago. No clue what it
hmm
was, right? And so because I didn't open it, I had never seen it open. And I just cleaned. I cleaned the whole room. I cleaned the whole altar, not thinking anything about it. Exactly the way that you're. And Dylan was like, "Did you open this? Did you touch this?" And I was like, "Yeah, it was just a book." And he was like, "It's not just a book." So I've gotten in trouble quite a few times, and I am definitely not a stranger to the idea of me being like, "How come I can't come in here?"
yeah, yeah. But it's funny that you say that because like my house right now doesn't let certain people in or let them even come over.
Mm,
So I, as also, you know, working with all of these practices, indigenous stuff, you know, that I work with runes and Norse work and
mhm,
energy. So Freya happens to be the goddess of my house. Like everybody knows that now. There's not anything to hide
mhm.
about. It's not like I do spiritual work with her or anything like that, but I've chosen her to be the woman of the house at this point because there are no women
She's
in
the
my house.
guardian.
She
Hmm.
will
She is the
literally,
guardian. Yeah.
she says who can and can't come in the house.
Mm,
There are no women allowed in this house without her saying yes. And
mm,
that is me sitting at the altar saying, so and so is coming over with so and so. Can they come over? So if you're not within the inner circle, like a wife or a fiance or a girlfriend of a long time or someone that I vibe with, more than likely you're not coming over. And I'm not going to piss her off. I'm not pissing
mm,
Freya off. You can forget it. So this is a good segue back to the idea of navigating spirituality and relationships. You start
mhm,
work like we're gonna put plant medicine aside and we'll start talking about the spiritualism stuff because
mhm,
my life is semi-dictated by what the spirits say because they're
mm.
tired of me making a mess of my life on my own. They've said you've done enough. We're
Mhm,
telling you no. Please just listen to us and you're gonna be
mhm,
just fine. When I started doing that, everything shifted in a better direction. My health, my
mm,
mental health, my well-being. I still eat too much pizza, but I'm working on it. Um, the safety in the house, the people
mhm,
that come here, they feel at home here now. The house feels
mm,
grounded. It's been healing. Um, I, I can do work here and not feel judged, obviously, because now this is our home.
mhm,
And when you're with someone who has a relationship with, let's say, the divine feminine in that way, understand you can't be jealous of that. You have to embrace that because
mm,
this is my relationship with the divine feminine in the sense of the healing that I need, the trust that I need to develop. Most of the circles that I hold now, it's a lot of women that come to these.
mhm,
So I'm holding space for the feminine all the time. And I take my breaks. So for me to not have that level of divine feminine energy around me would not, it wouldn't work.
Mm.
And
I get it.
she came to me in a sense, oh, she came to me after a very strong ayahuasca ceremony. All of this is intertwined because I started seeing cats everywhere and I knew exactly who it was. So I waited
Mm.
and I vetted and I waited and I practiced and I opened up little by little until the day came where she asked for her altar, which is right here in
Mm.
the kitchen in front of everyone. You come into my house,
Mhm.
she's right here. You can't ignore her. She doesn't want to be ignored. You're in her home
Mm.
too.
Mhm.
So these are also things. This is why you don't touch people's altars, Dan, because you don't know who's on it.
And I know that. That's the thing is like, I'm fully aware of that. But like, if you look behind me, you probably can't see his face, but Loki's right behind me.
uh,
At certain points in certain places that we've lived, all of the altars have kind of been like mishmashed because we've
yeah,
traveled so much. And so I
yeah,
was like, I need to clean the altar. And Dylan was like, you need to consult me next time. And I was like, well, you also should have told me. I didn't know. Because then also our altars were mixed up. I didn't understand that that's what was
yeah.
happening. I needed to know. So, but you know how Dylan's very reserved in that
Mhm.
energy, in that experience. So he's like, you don't have to know. How about that? You know, and you're
You don't need to know. Don't touch it. Sometimes that's what you're
like,
gonna. That is the response you're gonna get because
yes.
one, it's going to take
Mm-hmm.
too long for me to explain this to you, and if you don't
Yes.
do altar work or spiritual work
Mm-hmm.
at all, you're gonna think I'm crazy.
You know, well, so that actually,
It's
your
just a
face.
feather. No, it's not a feather.
Not, it is not just a feather, but I'm glad that you know what objects are. That actually leads us into the last really key point that I want to hit on today, which is that idea of training people in in the idea of what training is now. So you just hit on such a good point, which is like sometimes you're gonna get a well, just don't fucking like I'm not gonna explain this to you because it's gonna take too long, and don't fucking touch it. And
Yeah,
so there's this like I think this is a very interesting topic because this also has to do with relationships. It has to do with community relationships, I feel, which is people wanting to learn from each other, which I think in one side, yes, we should all be able to learn from each other, but also there are close practices. And also not everybody is meant to do everything. And so when we there's a reason, and Dylan will always say this to people like, I'm not willing to train anybody to serve combo because if you don't have the same scientific understanding as me, like there are so many contraindications. The amount of people that will send Dylan a message and say, hey, I'm serving somebody, they have this. Do you think I should serve them? And at first, many years ago, Dylan would respond. Now he tells them, if you don't know the answer to that question, you should not be serving this medicine because this is
I
not
agree.
just a spiritual medicine, but this is also something that you need to know the science behind this. So, like,
Yeah,
and it's not a medicine to fuck around with, so to speak,
no,
but also, so there's that, which, yes, you could really endanger someone, but even with altar work, you can endanger someone. And I feel like people don't understand that. And yes, I have done many trainings over my time. I've also done tons of mentorships over my life and my years. But I want to give you the floor to hear what you have to say, really from the perspective of how you operate as a shamanic practitioner and space holder, because I do feel like you and I are very similar, that there's not like a people constantly ask me, well, can I train with you and you teach me how to do this? And I'm like,
yeah.
you would have to work with me for at least a year in just one-on-one sessions before I even thought about opening the door to pass along any of the lineages that I've learned from you.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm the same way. So right now, I'm only working with one person,
Mm-hmm.
and only because one, I think she's a great person, but she's very dedicated to her path now. And I saw from the first time she sat in a drum circle to now the depth and the level of evolution and who she is. Um, for me, just to serve you Wachuma, just to give you just a taste of the medicine, a taste, not a full blown ceremony, just a taste. is anywhere from 6 months to a year of spending time with me, of me getting to know you, of me hearing how you're healing. Are you coming to me for limpias, cleansings? Are you coming
Mm-hmm.
to sit at the mountain to drum? Are you leaving offerings without me asking you to do
Mm-hmm.
it? Are you showing up to drum circles? Are you engaging with what I have to offer? I'm not going to train you if you're not going to put the time in. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's not about the money. I have a regular day job in construction still, because I would prefer that be my money source
Mm-hmm.
so that I can do this work with more authenticity and integrity and not be worrying about, oh, I need this person. I'm going to train this person because I just need income.
I need
I
the
don't want
money.
that. There's
Mm-hmm.
enough of that shit out
Mm-hmm.
there. And I'm not going to charge you for when you come sit with me with grandfather medicine. Because at that point, he's going to say, time to serve. Knock, knock, bitch, I'm here. Time to serve,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yep.
know? And it's how honest are you going to be with me? I'm not going to make you break the bank, but are you bringing offerings when we go? I'm not going to ask you to do that. The
Mm-hmm.
first two times I may ask you to do that when we do a cleansing. Bring an offering for the river, bring an offering for the elementals of the woods, for the whatever, wherever we are, whatever we're doing. I don't have to ask that of this person, this student, if you will, that I've been working with.
Mm-hmm.
And she just comes with something. She never comes empty-handed. She never says, "Give me, give me, give me, give me." You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm sorry, give me, give me, give me, give me. It's here. I have this for you. You're giving me this.
Mm-hmm.
I have this for you as well. There's always something, even if it's small. It's the small gestures that matter. Um, Training wise, you're going to be sitting in a lot of silence.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna wait until I say something, the spirit says something, or you figure it out. But I'm going to give you the
Mm-hmm.
space if you're genuine enough to do that. Um, if I feel at any point in time that you're not really doing this for what you said you are, I'm going to just stop. There's not going to be a cancellation fee. There's not going to be a notice. You're done.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you're also at the whim of what my spirits say. If they say no more, it's no more. It means you have to go out on your own. Now you have to learn. I've never had to say that to this person because they go out on their own and they do their own things. They work with,
Mm-hmm.
different medicines, um, in and out of psychedelics, also serves cacao, but has a really beautiful way of doing it. I know because she served me. And that's what I was like, you are genuine. Now I can serve you
Mm-hmm.
next. Now I can bring you to what you want. I gave you the chance to prove to me that you are genuine in this space. I have met a lot of people, I'm sure you have too, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this have too. We have met those who play a really great part and they take off the costume and they go home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where spirituality ends. I love if
Mm-hmm.
in my drum circles, I mess with people on purpose. I will put on all the regalia, cleanse everybody in it, and then sit down right before we start drumming. Go, okay, I got to take off my costume. I take off the
Mm-hmm.
headband. I take off the belt. I take off this. I take off. And they're looking at me like, "Don't you need that?" No, that was to protect me from you. Well, I cleansed you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I said, but I didn't really need it. I just put it on. It's a nice costume, isn't it? And they're confused. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the point. I don't need any of this. I've cleansed people in a flannel, jeans, and boots, like I just came out of work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that also speaks to another point that many years ago, I made a post on Instagram and it really riled some feathers where I said, like, wearing white does not make you spiritual and better than anyone else. Mainly because that old church that I used to work at, like, that was like you had to wear white
You
to
can wear
all of the
white.
ceremonies. You had to have on specific things to kind of play a part. And that's something that Dylan and I have talked to the people that, like, especially come on our retreats or in our
Yeah.
integration community. We hit on the fact that we're like, listen, like, if they want to get dressed, they will, if,
Yeah.
like, especially when our maestro or maestra, when she comes over from the jungle, um, she brings a ton of stuff from her family, from her village that
Yeah.
people can buy. So of course she's going to wear it. But when ceremony comes, girly pop comes in with a coat like from Costco and like sweatpants on. You know what I mean? Like she's
Hmm.
like, we're going to be here to do real work. Like
Yeah,
I don't need to be wearing my shirt and my skirt and the headdress that I made. Like
right.
I don't need that. And it's something that's so westernized.
Hmm.
Instead of like some of the most powerful ceremonies that I've had have been in the jungle where one of the maestros that we sit with has just he wore like a nice button up and he wore shorts and that was it. And it was an extremely powerful
Yeah.
ceremony, but they're like, yes, it is something that is culturally ours and it is
Hmm.
something that we have passed down how to create them, but like we wear them because you guys have this idea that we're more spiritual or more better or you guys are now more deserving or the medicine's going to be more intense because we've put this
Yeah,
shit on.
yeah. Yeah. There are power to these things that we wear, but if you don't, give me a second.
I want to say something quick.
Go ahead. Somebody's
So
talking to me and wants to speak on that, and I'm trying to like put it into words here. Um, and having a spiritual moment.
so 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 one of the things for me is like I have like my chupi, like I have like my womb belt and everything. But I
Hmm.
also like yes, wear those things, but also from my perspective and the teachings that I've received from my teachers is it's also important to be able to do the things that you need to do without those pieces of clothing. If you can't do all of it without that stuff,
Hmm.
then you're still a student who shouldn't be holding space in that way, if that makes
Correct.
sense.
Correct. So as you were saying that, I got regalia until not needed.
I love that.
Um, no, that was great. Yeah, I mean, the most powerful woman I had ever met in spiritual practices, God rest her soul, and hopefully she's at peace now. I think she is. Um, Sat on her couch in normal day clothes, never left her house, and could tell you exactly what you did that day without ever making a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
She never had to light candles. She just prayed and had
Mm-hmm.
faith in the powers that she had. And let me tell you, to this day, the only person that came close to the power she had was the little Shipibo woman in the jungle who only wore her Shipibo skirt and looked at me and was like, "You better buy this shirt." And I was like, "You got it." And I have that shirt. And when I wear that shirt, it reminds me of her power and how strong she
Mm-hmm.
was, more so than the strength, because she probably made it. They hand make everything pretty much. And I only wear that when I feel called to. I don't like
Yeah.
wearing that out in public. I don't like wearing, I used to love wearing all the necklaces and all the charms that like maybe I'll wear a ring here or there. You know, I was recently initiated into the Moonai key rites from a teacher that I have. I felt called to
Mm-hmm.
do it. So every once in a while, I'll wear my Pi stone just to have it there because I'm so used to wearing a necklace that I just kind of wear it because it's so subtle and low key. And it's like I touch it,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, it's there, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because the last one I had was huge. Now this one's half like a
Yeah.
fraction of the size. But like, I don't. I used to do all that. We all went through that. We all used to wear all the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Shipibo bracelets. They're so cool. They're so pretty. They're so bright because everything I wear used to be black. So, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it served a purpose until I realized you're relying too much on a material object more so than your actual
Mm-hmm.
well-being and your ability to handle this space and your team on the other side. Your energetic team, your
Mm-hmm.
spiritual team, your guardian angels, your ancestors, your power animals, your totem spirits, whatever it is, that is where you should be putting more of your energy. And I wanted to touch on something about wearing all white because I almost wore a white shirt today. And I was like, no, I'm just going to wear this one to be normal. Um, the only time you will ever see me wear all white is if I'm going to a specific tradition where they require you to wear all white. And those are usually
Mm-hmm.
your Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Brazilian
Mm-hmm.
traditions that that is what they do. Now, people will come in with the wrong color. They'll come in with t-shirt and jeans. I was just recently at
Mm.
a session the other night, and a woman came in with a white, uh, what do you call it? Um, like tank top, like a training tank top and black leggings. And I'm
Mm.
like, the spirits that we're going to sit with are considered elders, and you decided to wear that?
Mm.
Okay. But everybody just does whatever. If you can't go home and change, not everybody has an all white outfit.
Mhm.
You know, I have mine specifically for this. That's the only time you'll ever see me wear all white. Because when I do work with
Mhm.
Wachuma, or I'm out in the woods, I'm wearing jeans, I'm wearing joggers,
Mm.
I'm wearing clothes that are about to get muddy because I go in the
Mhm.
river. I'm getting dirty. It's
Mhm.
gonna happen. I don't want to ruin white clothes. I buy nice white shirts just to have, and I get caught in it. But I do believe that a
Mm.
lot of this idea of like white, like you got to wear all white to ceremony, actually comes from these Afro-Caribbean, Afro-Brazilian
Mhm.
traditions, which has nothing to do with ayahuasca unless you're involved with Santo
Mhm.
Daime. So
Mhm.
that's where that comes from. So no, you
Yep.
don't have to wear all white to ceremony. You should wear bright, light colored clothes or light clothes because it's going to get hot and you're going to be sweating. And you're probably going to be freezing
Mm.
and then sweating again and puking. God knows what else is coming up. But like we're convinced that these dogmatic ideas are like set in stone. Meanwhile, like you said, you've got maestros and maestras and taitas or whatever, and they're wearing whatever because
Yep.
it's available. I
Mhm.
watched my maestro cut his way through the jungle in a like a denim button down and his rain boots or his the big boots because he decided that he didn't want to get his pants wet. And he's coming into ceremony with an Under Armour t-shirt and his Shapivo
Yep.
pants, you know, just because. And all he was like, listen, we sing our ithros and we smoke our mapachos and that's all we
Yep.
need. So what
Mhm.
do you think I do?
Mhm.
I sing my songs that come through, and there's definitely mapacho somewhere. And if I don't have that, I've got some form
Mhm.
of tobacco, again, in
Mhm.
right relationship with the medicines that you use.
Mhm.
Um, but that is something I teach in training as well. It's like you should have something that connects you with spirit. When you touch it, when you feel it, it reminds you because we live in a world
Mm.
where it wants you disconnected. Have something with you. Like I have a pouch full of little items. I can make a tiny little altar wherever I go. So I keep it with me all
Same.
the time and
Mhm.
carry something like that.
Mm.
If you're going to work with tobacco, understand how it affects your body. Understand that
Mm.
this is not a drug. This is not something to be addicted to. If you need to use it every day, you might want to ask yourself, why am I using it every day?
Yes.
You may see me
Yes.
do a couple puffs here and there, but you're going to understand why at some point. Why am I putting Florida
Mhm.
water in my mouth and blowing it over your forehead? You're just
Mhm.
going to take on that and just do it without like figuring it out. I had to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
I
Such a
don't want
horrid
my
taste.
it's an acquired taste now. I know something.
It's so true.
I know life is good when I don't have the taste of Florida water in my mouth. I haven't had to use it. I had to use it the other day actually, and it's like Listerine but on steroids.
It really, really is. With all of this being said, I want to take a deep breath. Deep breath in and out. I want to close up this conversation here because I really want people to interact with this conversation and leave us comments and tell us what they want us to dive into more, what they want us to really continue opening the doors to, because we have hit on so many beautiful little pieces in a puzzle,
As we
as we
do, as
always
we
do,
do.
as we always do. So I want to ask you one final question that I've asked everybody who's joined me on the podcast, which is what word of prayer or what word of intention would you like to offer that's on your heart right now that you feel is not just important to you, but also important to the collective? And it can be a singular word or it can be a sentence.
Hmm. Um, there's a couple of things that keep coming up, but a one word would be stillness.
Mm.
And you can learn more in silence than you can in a room full of people.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's something that most people struggle with, which is why I really love that you were a part of the
Mm,
cacao dieta, because like it was more about being with you and not pushing than anything
mhm.
else. And everybody wants something more. Well, what breath work can I add with it? What movement? What somatic practice? And it's like, nah, bro.
Yeah, be still. That was my morning work today, which was I was like, what do I visualize? And all I kept hearing was, why do you have to do any of that?
Mm,
Just sit here. You haven't sat here in a while. Just sit.
mhm,
And that's if you're going to get involved with anything at all spiritual, sit still. Learn to sit still because you're going to
mhm,
learn more from doing that than you will in any uh, mentorship or ayahuasca ceremony or coven or whatever. They're all going to tell you to sit down. They're all going to tell you to figure out who you are. You can't do that if you're constantly talking or conversing or
mhm,
trying to figure out the next best thing. The best
mm,
practice that I developed was sitting still in the morning. And what really cemented that was that cacao dieta because sitting with her, and sometimes it was sitting with cacao, sometimes it was walking with cacao, but it was always in silence
mhm,
and it was always just listening. We talk way too much
mhm,
and we're not talking about anything.
mhm, mhm,
We are not, we are, what are we talking about here? We just be quiet. I had a
mhm,
phrase that after a while, um, I would be asked people, well, don't you have anything to say? Don't you want to talk about stuff? Or, in certain contexts, so I would look at them and I would say, I don't really have a lot to say anymore. I have even less people to say it to
mhm,
because I didn't have the need to keep talking. Just
mhm.
shut the fuck up for 5 seconds in the nicest way
Yes.
possible. Shut up.
Mhm,
Because this here, your head, your mind, the ego, everything here is already talking while you're talking. Because as soon as you stop, that starts. So when you get that to stop, then you realize your mouth has less to say.
yeah.
Then you can focus. Then that's when the training starts.
Mhm.
That's the preliminary. You're not as fast to go on a retreat afterwards. You're not as fast to take another
Mm,
cup of ayahuasca or wachuma or mushrooms, whatever it is. You can't hear the spirit speak if you're constantly yapping away, as I was told two
mm.
days ago. I've been doing this for a long time, and they still tell me you're a stubborn child and you don't
Yeah.
like to listen to yourself.
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, those are always good times. I love when they yell at me.
Yes. It's an
It
important
means
piece
they're
to the
there.
puzzle.
If they're there, you're
Yes.
still here. You're yelling at me. It means you're paying attention to me. I love it.
And with that being said, would you like to share any upcoming offerings, or do you just want to tell people the best way to stay in touch with you?
The best way to stay in touch with me would probably be through Instagram. I have a Facebook that's linked to it, but I don't like using Facebook. On there is my email. You can always shoot me an email or a DM. Right now, I am, I don't have anything planned at the moment. I'm kind of leaving things open for people to reach out if they need help with anything. Ceremony season is around the corner. So I've offered my help in holding space. And yeah, I mean, it's getting warmer here. So there may be some fire circles coming up. So
Mm,
just kind of have to look out on Instagram. I'm not really co-hosting anymore.
okay.
I'm doing more on my own because there's more I'd like to focus on for those things. Sometimes you get distracted when you have other people involved. Um,
Mm,
so just keep an eye out, and I'm always open to conversation, questions. If you need help, I'm in Connecticut, so in the New Haven County area. So if you're local and you need something that I could help with, um, just reach out. And if I can't help you, I'll send you to somebody who can.
Thank you so much for being here today. I deeply appreciate you. And I will make sure that linked below, whether you're listening on whatever platform you prefer, that Tom's Instagram is linked below so that you can get in touch with him. And thank you so much, like, for all of your heart and for all of your love and for being here today. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, thank you for having me, and I'm glad we got to have this conversation like this instead of voice notes. Um,
Yes, yes.
the only thing I would say to anybody who is, um, again, getting involved with all of this, take some time to really ask yourself why, and what is
Mm,
it that's really driving you to do this. You are not missing out on anything. You're not.
mm,
What you're going to do is you're going to give yourself a lot more responsibility, and you're going to have to hold
mhm.
yourself to a greater deal of accountability, to which we all have to take at some point, anyways. So ask yourself why before you do something, and make sure it's safe for you to do, regardless of what it is.
Mm.
So that's all.
Thank you. I actually just said that to someone probably about 2 weeks ago. They are joining us for the next Cacao Dieta, which, if you're listening to this, we start March 19th and we are doing it with the spring equinox. And so that's a 4 week group devotional experience. And they were saying, they were asking me certain questions. And I was like, if you're called to these medicines, though, why? Not just even like in terms of serving, but also in terms of sitting, like, what's your why? And they were like, I will get back to you. And I was like, okay, this is good. This is, I want more clarity on these ideas. And
Yeah.
so thank you guys so much for listening and for being here. If you want to join us in Peru in the Sacred Valley, it is a week-long plant medicine retreat. It is in alignment with the solstice and also Inti Raimi, which is one of their indigenous celebrations out here in the Andes Mountains in Peru. And that also comes with being extremely devoted, because you will be with us not just for the 7 day experience, but you'll be with us for about 2.5 months in a really close knit container. And anything else that you're looking for should be in the show notes. So we're sending many blessings to you and to yours. Blessed be, and we'll chat with you all soon, I hope.